Welcome to our live webinar titled Shrink Mean Time to Repair with Proactive Machine Maintenance. This webinar is sponsored by LLumin and Automation.com, the publication subsidiary of the International Society of Automation. I am Renee Bassett, Chief Editor of Automation.com, and I will be your host. Reducing machine downtime is more critical than ever, and monitoring machine parameters and conditions is the most impactful way to proactively reduce the time it takes to make repairs. You can use operating utilization levels to create recurring maintenance schedules or use condition data values to assess risk failures and create predictive maintenance triggers. In this webinar, we will look at both use cases of proactive maintenance and learn how a rules-based approach can help you plan ahead for actions to take, what skills to engage, and what resources to incorporate to fix machines quickly. You'll hear from experts from LLumin, the experts in computerized maintenance management software, and see how you can significantly increase levels of communication, improve collaboration and operations, reduce costs, and boost overall asset and operations time. This live presentation will include software demonstrations, poll questions, and a question and answer session. All are being recorded, and afterward you will be emailed a link for viewing it later. We'd like this to be an interactive session. So before you get started, please take a moment to acquaint yourself with the features of this upgraded GoToWebinar technology. Use the questions window you see here to submit your questions at any time. All questions will only be seen by me and our speakers. Additional questions may be answered individually via email. For poll questions, a window will pop up to allow you to respond. Your anonymous answers will be collected and presented immediately so you and our speakers can learn a little bit about who is in the audience today. And now for some information on our speakers. Ed Garabian is the founder and CEO of LLumin, and he will be our main presenter. Ed is an electrical engineer with more than 30 years of experience in software deployment and development. Previously worked at Applied Software Technologies as a CEO, and prior to that, he was a design engineer at Texas Instruments. Doug Answeeney is Vice President and Chief Software Technologist for LLumin. Doug has a master's degree in industrial engineering and operations research and has spent more than 20 years working in the asset management, CMMS, and inventory control space. Doug has been working to optimize maintenance strategies as well as designing and developing software solutions to meet those needs. He'll be running our software demos today. I know we're all looking forward to what our speakers have to say, so now I'll turn the microphone over to Ed.
All right, thanks, Renee. Yeah, so we're going to get started now, and just a little bit of background about LLumin. LLumin company is, we're based in Massachusetts, about an hour and a half west of Boston, actually. The product is CMMS Plus. CMMS Plus. It is a cloud-based application that runs on AWS, mostly based on a Microsoft tech stack. And we're really excited that every day our customer base uses CMMS Plus to manage over 1 million assets. So that's a little bit about us. Oh, actually, the other thing is it's a cloud-based application, but I think it's also important to know that we've actually architected so that for folks that absolutely need the solution to be in their data center or on-premise, we actually do support that. So just FYI. Okay, so these are some of our partners and alliances. So as I said, Microsoft tech stack is pretty much how we built the product, but we're also partners with Microsoft in terms of we integrate to their ERP solutions, the Dynamics line. Others include SAP and an array of either controls companies or data companies and other ERP players. So these are some of our our alliances. And these are some of our customers, some of our key accounts. And I'd say that the takeaway here is that even though some of these logos are recognizable, some are not. But I think the thing that this speaks to, I always say, is that our product has really been built so that it can manage any type of assets. Obviously, we're going to talk today about using data to trigger proactive and predictive maintenance on machinery. But our product's used in so many different types of assets and industries, and I think that's also a very important part of what CMMS Plus is all about. And just to level set, I'm sure you guys are familiar with the industry, CMMS and maintenance management, but CMMS Plus is software that manages and protects infrastructure, machinery, critical assets, and most importantly, the operations that depend on that infrastructure and depend on those assets. So, all of us here at LLumin, we go to work, and our passion is making sure that anyone that uses CMMS Plus does not experience an unplanned down event. That's kind of what gets us motivated. And so with that, in terms of what our customers would tell you that we contribute, so obviously downtime, so we help them eliminate unplanned downtime, but we also work with them to ensure that any type of compliance or any type of regulations that matter to them, we literally help them stay in compliance with. Obviously, we're all about maintaining assets and equipment, so we extend the life cycle of those assets and equipment, and obviously our customers benefit by an increased return on their investment in those assets. And I think that one of the things that sets LLumin CMMS Plus apart from our competitors is that we really do a super effective job of optimizing and managing logistics. So logistics around all the stakeholders that are involved when it comes to managing assets or doing any sort of maintenance on those assets. So our customers would tell you that not only does our product help them do a better job of maintaining their infrastructure and assets, but it truly is an operations story as well. And so we're going to show you a little bit about that today. So these are the KPIs that we get measured on. These are the KPIs that our customers get measured on. I'm sure you guys are familiar with them. So these are some of the top metrics that matter to folks that are managing assets and performance, and obviously maintenance departments. But today we're going to hone in on one in particular. Obviously, that's the title of the webinar. We're going to look at ways in we can actually minimize or shrink the mean time to repair a metric. And in doing so, obviously, we're going to help lower your costs, or lower the asset cost of ownership, because obviously any time that actions are done more quickly, repairs are done more effectively, you're going to reduce costs and ultimately drive up the amount of time that machine or that asset is available for utilization. So that's another benefit from managing the time it takes to repair or to complete an action. And then I also mentioned that one of the things that LLumin CMMS Plus does super well is help you stay in compliance with whatever regulations or industry standards that matter to you. So again, by being more effective and efficient with repair cycles, you're going to also improve your levels of compliance. We'll show you that today. So it really starts with okay, how do we reduce MTTR levels? I mean, what's the process? Well, obviously, you guys know it starts with people, a technician, but also making sure that the technician has the right skill set, the right training for whatever job or whatever repair or whatever PM they have to do. And then now you have to look at, if there's a crew involved, is it the right crew? Are they available at the right time? Obviously, if it's a planned event, then we have to make sure that the asset's available to work on, because there's a work order that's impending, and obviously we want to get that thing done as fast as possible. And also, if there's parts or tools or resources that are needed in order for the crew or the technician to complete the work, making sure that they're available and they're the right ones. And is the machine available not only, as I mentioned, have the people been notified, if let's say it's a PM and are the operations folks aware that there's a PM, but also are there third-party suppliers or contractors that need to be involved in order to actually complete the work or have access to the asset or the machine. And finally, if there's a compliance situation, is there a management of change that needs to be looked at, or are the folks that need to be involved with any type of compliance documentation or regulations at all, are they available, and are they going to allow access for the work to begin, and when the work completes, is there anything that needs to be done in order to make sure that asset can now be put back in a running state. So all these moving parts are what contribute to the length of time that a repair or a PM or any type of action might take. So what we're going to talk about today is using our system so that we can literally coordinate and collaborate all these stakeholders to make sure that everyone knows what they're supposed to be doing at the right time they're supposed to be doing it. So we're going to show today how CMMS Plus can be used to add a more, sort of JIT, proactive and predictive process to your maintenance strategies and your maintenance best practices. We're going to look at how you can use data and monitor data and set rules around that data so that once an event does occur, whether it's a planned utilization-based PM or an unplanned impending fault type work order, that you're prepared, that you've created not only the trigger points around that data, but also a very collaborative, workflow centric set of outcomes and notifications that ensure that you're minimizing the time to repair. Well, again, whether it's a planned event or an unplanned event, we'll show you how you can minimize the time it takes to complete that action and ultimately get that machine back and running ASAP. So it sort of starts with making sure that in an environment that your people are logged into, that environment, that CMMS is configured so that based on the role of the user that's logged in, they're seeing information that matters to them, actions, KPIs, and information that they need without having to go drill into it. That's going to be part of this whole proactive story. And also, I talked earlier about how LLumin CMMS Plus is highly scalable for any type of asset or industry. Well, whatever environment that you're using, you have to make sure that if you're going to be proactive and monitor asset conditions and parameters, that you're managing the right ones based on the type of asset that you're managing. So obviously, for a machine, there are some straightforward conditions, but there might be different types of assets that are very critical to your operations that might not have the same set of parameters, or at least the same set of parameters that matter as another set of machinery that might be, as part of your operation. So based on the asset type, you're going to set rules around, given the asset type, what parameters and conditions need to be monitored in order to, be the most proactive. And so we're going to show you how that looks. All right, so we're going to show a quick demo of what this environment looks like in CMMS Plus. So Doug, then you want to pop in and show us a few minutes of what the application looks like?
Okay, great. Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. Yeah, let's go ahead and get started. And I'd like to, touch upon the configurability, customizability of LLumin CMMS Plus. And I'm going to start with the homepage dashboards. The homepage dashboards are really designed to provide our users with all the key information that they need to do their job on a daily basis. And they are very customizable, very shapeable by them. You can choose from many different KPIs, metrics, charts, and more detailed grids of information to add to your homepage. So what each person's homepage looks like is really entirely up to them. They can choose from different KPIs, such as that mean time to repair that we've been talking about, also being able to see how many assets are currently down in real time, and grouping that different ways so they can see where their issues are, seeing what work orders are currently being worked on, and they can add rules and alerts to any of these KPI metrics as well. When they exceed certain thresholds. So for example, if the number of currently overdue work orders is too high, turn that red to really help draw people's attention to where it's needed most, or if that MTTR number is getting up too high. Now, just by way of one other, quick example, this is, a typical layout of a maintenance supervisor who needs to monitor things like down assets, currently open work orders, and overdue work orders. I'll just show a typical maintenance technician here on their mobile device, and they, wanted a more streamlined interface, really focused primarily just on what is the work that they need to do today. So they set up their homepage with just one grid, a list of work orders assigned to them, and they can see everything they need to see about these work orders and take any actions they need to all right from their homepage. So this makes for a very efficient, easy to use experience for them. They don't have to spend a lot of time navigating around in the software, which gives them more time available to work on the work orders, work on those repairs and maintenance tasks. Just going to switch back to the main system and quickly go through how the assets can be set up within Lumin CMMS Plus. So typically they're going to be organized into a hierarchy where you can have multiple different plants, and then within each plant you can have different production departments and production lines within there, assets under there, child assets under there, so on and so forth. And it is a very flexible hierarchy, and users can be restricted to within any level of this hierarchy to only see the assets and work orders that are relevant to them. So that also adds to the ease of use. Now within here, you can also access our facility view, which shows you the real-time status of all the machines, all the assets in a given location, with most importantly, the real-time status of each of those machines being conveyed by the color of it. So in this example here, all of the assets that are currently up and running are showing in green, no issues with those. Any that are in purple are currently undergoing some sort of planned maintenance, typically a routine PM, inspection, or calibration. Any that are in orange have one or more repair work orders open against them. And then finally, any that are in red are currently down. So it's a really great way for our users to be able to see the overall status of all the machines in a given location, as well as being able to very visually and intuitively see in real time where their problems are. I do want to just take a quick look at the Asset Master screen for a couple of these assets, where you can see all of the information that Lumin tracks for the assets. And this is another example of a very configurable, shapeable screen within Lumin. In this case, people can set up different types of assets or different asset types for each of the different kinds of assets they manage. And for each of those assets, they can turn on or off any of these cards of information based upon whether or not they're relevant to that type of asset, as well as adding any number of additional fields specific to that type of asset. So for example, here for some production equipment, we're tracking a lot of information, but for rolling stock or vehicles, we're tracking less information, but we have added a number of fields specific to a vehicle asset type, such as the fuel type, drive type, engine size, etc. So, another example of, how Lumin CMMS Plus is very configurable, very shapeable, to make sure that you're getting all the information that you need in real time about what's going on in your organization or your operation, as well as all the information relevant to the different types of assets. And with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Ed.
Awesome. Okay. All right, awesome, Doug. Thank you. So, all right. So we took a little bit of we took a look at a little bit of what the product and what the environment looks like overall. So now let's drill more into this whole notion of being proactive and working on, shrinking those MTTR metrics. So as I said earlier, the first part of being proactive is understanding or at least deciding on what data to monitor. And there's a couple of sets of data that we typically see our customers using. One is usage or utilization data. So how long has that asset or how long has that machine been in use? And that can easily be hours. It can easily be, well, depending on the type of asset, miles or distance. It can also be how much product has been run on that machine. And that could be a measure of utilization. So make some decisions around that. And then the health of the asset itself, while it's being used or being in production, the types of conditions and parameters based on the type of asset it is, what types of conditions and parameters matter, and what are the ones that need to be monitored that represent the health of the asset. All right, so now let's take a look at how CMMS Plus can be used. Once you've made some decisions around that data, it can be used to monitor that data and then set up some rules for triggering.
And yeah, so now let's take a look at setting up some of those proactive conditions that you can monitor for. So within Lumin, you can, with Lumin CMMS Plus, you can tie directly into the equipment, the machines that you're managing through our machine interface service. And what that allows you to do is to connect to the equipment through any type of control system that you might be running, such as a SCADA system or DCS system, or any IoT sensors or PLC controllers, which allows you to monitor the real-time conditions coming off of that equipment right in Lumin. So for example, here on this piece of equipment, we are currently monitoring the pressure coming off of it, the temperature of it. There's a vibration sensor on there that we're monitoring. And then finally, the runtime hours. And once Lumin CMMS Plus is monitoring this real-time equipment condition, there's several things that can be done with it. First, that runtime hours is a measure, of course, of actual equipment utilization. And Lumin can use this to trigger PMs based upon actual utilization for more accurate PMing based upon things such as runtime hours or machine cycles or mileage on a vehicle, where it can now pull in that information automatically. So it's always aware of exactly how much your machines, your equipment have been utilized, and then trigger routine maintenance such as PMs or inspections based upon that actual equipment utilization, such as a servicing or PM that needs to be done every 500 runtime hours. That, of course, gives you more accurate PMing based upon actual equipment utilization, prevents you from over PMing when the equipment's not being used as frequently as usual, and also prevents you from missing PMs when it's being used more frequently than usual. But in addition to that, you can also use the real-time equipment or real-time machine conditions to set up more proactive and predictive condition-based triggers to monitor for early warning signs that the equipment is starting to operate out of spec, or monitor for smaller problems that may not be a big deal now, but could ultimately become a bigger issue or even a downtime event if they are not addressed sooner. So I'll just show you a quick example of how you can set up these condition-based triggers to monitor for. So we do know that on this type of equipment, rising temperature and vibration levels, especially at the same time, are indicative of a problem starting to occur, things starting to operate out of spec. So we want to monitor for that. So we'll just go ahead and add a new condition that says anytime the vibration sensor that we've got on there registers a level higher than 25, that's something that is indicating that there may be a problem. We want to monitor for that. And again, we want to have multiple conditions on here as well. We really want to check for that vibration and temperature rising at the same time. So we can add another condition. And it doesn't just have to be an absolute number. It could also be based on monitoring for, analytical things like a spike to a trend. So in this case, instead of being over a specific temperature, what we're really looking for is to see if that overall temperature level is spiking abnormally. So we're going to say if it rises more than 25% or 20% over our 7-day moving average, that indicates an anomaly. It's violating a trend. It's spiking abnormally, and that is something that we want to monitor for. You can also say that the condition must persist for a certain length of time, because you don't want a quick momentary spike to something to necessarily trigger all sorts of alerts. So we're going to say that this has to persist for at least, let's say, 30 seconds to tell us that this really is a problem that we want to be made aware of and take action on. And you can also look for patterns as well. So maybe if this happens once, it's not such a big deal, but we really want to look for a pattern, monitor for patterns that are really indicative that we have an issue here. So we're going to say if this set of conditions occurs within a 12-hour window 3 times at least, that is indicative of a problem, that this has happened more than 3 or more times within a 12-hour period. So that is showing a pattern that we want to monitor for. So this really helps reduce your MTTR by proactively monitoring for conditions that can lead to bigger issues and addressing them while they are still smaller issues, which can be more quickly addressed and resolved. Okay, so I will turn it back over to Ed.
Very cool. All right, thanks, Doug. All right, so now that we've set up some rules, we've made some decisions around what data we want to monitor, and then we've set up some rules around triggering off of that data, based on potential either usage levels or maybe conditions that have exceeded a threshold, or some analytics rules or whatever. So once the trigger event occurs, what we want to now do is set up the actions and notifications that need to be taken based on the type of machine that we're monitoring, and of course the data that has exhibited that there's a need for work or remediation. So in order to shrink MTTR times, it's not just about notifying the maintenance folks, which obviously that's important, but it might also be notifying folks in operations that an event is about to occur, or work order is about to occur. It also might mean notifying third-party suppliers or contractors or other personnel, EHS personnel or whatever. So all based on the type of machine, what it's doing, maybe the time of day, and of course those parameters that we've been looking at. So that's one set of well thought out workflows that can be created around that rule. And then the other is what to do. So we've notified the right folks, the right stakeholders, but now what actions need to be taken based on context around the machine type, the parameter type, and maybe again the time of day or any other operations input. So we have to stage the right procedures, the right instructions, maybe certain specific documentation, and also what resources. We talked about this before. What resources are going to be needed, what parts, what tools, that type of thing. So now let's take a look at how CMMS Plus can be used not only to trigger actions based on data, monitoring data, but also a lot more rigor in terms of what actions to be taken. So let's see another demo.
Okay, so once those conditions have been met, I'd like to take a look at how those notifications and actions get automatically created that Ed was referring to. So if this anomaly has been detected, if this, early indication that something is starting to go wrong has been detected, we of course want to let people know about it. So we're going to ask the system, or tell the system, to go ahead and send out some notifications as soon as this occurs. So we're going to have the system automatically send out specifically an email to a group of technicians in that plant, on that shift, in that department, however, whoever you choose to notify, to make sure that people get notified about this in real time, because a problem is starting to occur and we want to address it as soon as possible. And to that end, we can also have the system automatically escalate if none of the technicians that the system has emailed respond within a certain time frame. So we're going to say if no one has responded to this notification within 2 hours, we're going to have the system automatically escalate that. And now we're going to have it go ahead and send an SMS text message, in this case, to a group of maintenance supervisors, because things are starting to get more urgent, and we want to make sure action is taken on this right away. So we're going to have that escalate and send out a text to them. And then finally, in addition to just letting people know that there is a problem, we do want the system to take some additional actions if this should occur. Specifically in this case, we're going to have it automatically create a work order. And if you know what the likely remedy is based upon the symptoms, such as in this case, rising temperature and vibration levels could be indicative of a bearings issue, you can have that work order contain the necessary procedures for resolving the issue, such as here our step-by-step procedure to replace the bearings on that model of equipment, also any lockout, tagout, or other safety documentation that needs to be completed, and then as well as any parts that are needed, which will of course let the technician know not only what do they need to do to resolve the issue, but also the parts they're going to need to do it. And then we can also have the system automatically create a requisition for those parts, so that these parts are going to be ordered right away to get them in. So we're waiting, so our repair time is being impacted as little as possible by waiting on those parts, by having the system automatically create a requisition for the parts that are needed to complete this work order. So this is, really helping to reduce your MTTR by ensuring that people are automatically notified as soon as the problem occurs, and that those notifications are also getting escalated if no one takes action. Work orders are being created automatically and immediately with the procedures and parts needed, which ensures that people have all the information they need right away to make the repair. And then finally, those parts are being requested immediately so they can get ordered and delivered as soon as possible. Okay, back to you, Ed.
All right, thanks, Doug. Okay, so now let's take a look at the results of all this. So we've set up rules that are based on conditions and utilization levels and whatever data that matters. We've set up triggers. We've also put in those triggers, as Doug showed, different criteria for who to notify and then what to do and what resources are needed. So now we're going to take a look at all this and the outcomes that this is all producing, that, as you can see, consist of the right notifications to the right people, the right documentation, the right instructions, and even triggers for follow-up actions and continuous learning or corrective actions for future work if needed based on the event that's occurred. So let's take a look at one last demo.
Okay, great, thanks. So yeah, let's take a look at the outcomes of those actions that the system has automatically generated for us, and how those outcomes can then be assigned. So we see right on our homepage, as a maintenance supervisor, a new work order that was automatically created by the system at the first sign of trouble, and we can go ahead and go into that work order. And when we take a look at that work order, we do see that it has been created with the necessary procedures that are needed for the technician to follow. So again, they're getting all of that information right at their fingertips, as well as the parts needed. So the parts that they will need to do this work, in addition to the step-by-step procedures that they need to follow in order to effect the repair, all are listed and staged right on that work order. If any of those parts are not in inventory or not in stock, again, we are having the system automatically put those out to the reorder list, automatically creating a requisition for them, a request for those parts, so those can get ordered and received in right away. And then we can go ahead and assign this work out to either an in-house technician or an outside contractor, so someone starts working on that right away. And then we can schedule this as well, so we can get this done when it needs to be done. So I can just bring up a schedule for this particular work order, or this particular technician, I should say, and then just go ahead and find a day that I want to schedule this for, and just schedule this technician to go ahead and work on that work order, or that contractor to work on that work order on that particular day. For any work orders that require outside contractors to come in, purchase orders for that work or requisitions can be created for that as well. So if we need some on-site maintenance for this, then we can have a purchase order get created for that as well, to have these have this contractor come out on site and work on that work. And then finally, we can also set up reminders. So, again, coming back to notifications and making sure that everyone, is being notified as they need to, as this goes through its process. As this is coming due, we are going to go ahead and just have a reminder sent out to, one of our technicians or a contractor to let them know that the work order is coming due. So you can set those reminders, as many reminders as you want, up to notify people or notify people in operations that this is upcoming, that maintenance is upcoming, and that they're going to need, access to the machine, et cetera. So again, really making sure that people who need to know about this upcoming work are getting reminded that it is, in fact, coming due soon. So everything that we've looked at here, really all combine to reduce your overall MTTR a number of ways, including, proactively monitoring for those conditions that can lead to bigger issues and addressing them sooner, addressing them early while they're still smaller and can be quicker repairs. Also, having work orders get created automatically and immediately with all of the parts and all of the procedures that are needed, which shortens your repair time by making sure that everyone has all the information they need right at their fingertips right away to do the repair. Those parts that are needed being automatically requested if they're not in stock, so they can be ordered and delivered as soon as possible. Reminder notifications being sent out to ensure that work orders are getting completed on time. So all of this really combines to shorten your mean time to repair, as well, of course, as reducing your overall asset downtime by getting the equipment up quicker, and in many cases, addressing the issue before it even becomes a downtime event. Okay, thank you. I'm gonna kick it back over to Ed.
Oh, that was awesome, Doug. Thank you so much. All right, so I think in summary, what we're talking about today is basically using machine information, conditions, parameters, and also understanding the criticality or the process that those assets are being used in, and then based on that, putting together sets of rules that trigger based on either predictive potential faults that might be occurring, or just routine usage or utilization based work, that rules that basically, once these actions are triggered, accommodate resources correctly, instructions correctly. Obviously, we talked about notifications and being proactive, and Doug also talked about reminder notifications as the work moves through its cycle, and ultimately not only lowering costs, shrinking MTTR levels, but but even aiding in compliance and regulatory requirements. And honestly, the focus today was on mean time to repair, but all of this that we looked at really does play a role in improving any organization's overall strategic asset management initiatives. Because we talked about coordinating teams, we talked about understanding what parameters are important for each asset type being managed. So assessing that and using that knowledge to then trigger the right actions at the right time. Obviously, I talked about planning or being more proactive, and then actually completing the work and incorporating the right instructions and the right resources and all that. So it obviously is an MTTR story, but it's also an overall asset management and maintenance management strategy and story as well. So with that, if there's any questions, I think we've got some last last questions we're going to be talking through today.
We do have some questions coming in, Ed.
Great.
So that's great. Just to remind our listeners that you can still submit questions, and we have about 10 minutes for those questions, so we'll get to as many as we can. And let's start with the first one. What if we don't have control systems or condition sensors in place? Will this system still work for us?
Yeah, that's actually a great question. Yeah, I mean, obviously today we've been looking at ways to be more proactive based on machine parameters, but the reality is not every asset's connected, not every asset has sensors associated with it. We certainly get that, and I think the right answer is, there are ways to be proactive even if you're doing time-based maintenance. There's also ways of being proactive for operator created work requests and work requests that are created based on a facility work request or a machine request that comes in from production. And I think the important thing is understanding that when an event occurs, then it might very well be an observation that's creating the work order, how to react to that event based on, like we said earlier, the machine or the asset that's being, the work is being requested on it, and also the context around the type of work and maybe the location of that asset and that sort of thing. Doug, do you have any other input on this in terms of what other ways folks could maybe use our system to get ahead of potential faults and that sort of thing, and obviously in the end shrink the mean time to repair by being ahead of things?
Yeah, I mean that that really does speak to it. Just also performing those routine inspections, setting up triggering rules based on that. So even if you don't have a control system in place or anything like that, you're still getting that information ahead of time. Still able to set up rules to proactively address issues based upon the findings of inspections, and of course doing those routine PMs and maintenance proactively as well.
Great. Well, I have a two-part integration question for you because two questions came in that are very related. How easy is it to integrate your CMMS with our machine systems? Specifically, is it possible to get metric data back into an HMI or DCS via open secure protocols from the cloud or on-prem?
Sure. So we actually use industry standard protocols to make it really much easier to integrate into your control systems. So standard protocols like OPC UA, OPC DA, MQTT, Modbus TCP. This allows us to really tie into any SCADA system or DCS system or IoT sensor without being bound to specific manufacturers. So it makes it a lot easier. You can also integrate the front end of the application for the operators to use right within an HMI, and then we can also pass back information to control systems, to MES systems, to update things like the current status of the asset, when it's available and running again after work orders have been completed. And in terms of the security of it, it's all done very securely, basically just by having our machine interface service running locally on your control network and pushing outbound only to your cloud instance, so that prevents you from having to open up any ports in your firewall. Parameter or condition values are being sent through a secure socket channel, so it's all done in a very secure manner.
Excellent. On a related question, once created, can these rule sets be easily assigned to other similar devices?
Sure, yeah, absolutely. So you can, set up a set of rules for a, one particular device, and then just replicate those across, similar devices. So if you have, 5 or 10 identical or similar assets, you can kind of create those rules once and then replicate those across.
That's awesome.
Excellent. Another person asks, can we replace a complete SCADA system with this software?
No, that's an interesting question. Yeah, probably not replace a SCADA system. We typically work in conjunction with control systems. So yeah, we're not really a SCADA or control system actually.
Gotcha. Okay. Another question. What version of SAP can you interface to? We are on SAP ECC EHP4 and looking for a CMMS which would interface to that.
Well, I know we're with S/4HANA, but Doug, I mean, in terms of SAP, other versions, I know we've integrated to different versions of SAP.
We have. Yeah, so the nice thing about the way that our integrations work is we can really tie in to anything that has an exposed API. We have integrated to earlier versions of SAP as well, and basically we can just push or post to their exposed API. We can do that in a number of ways, such as sending purchase requisitions over to SAP. If they're using SAP PM, we can send work order information over as well.
Gotcha. Another question. Time to next expected interaction. Is that a parameter or a metric in your algorithm?
Time to next expected interaction. Well, I think, Doug, what they might be asking about is, with our analytics, can they look at over time when incidents have occurred, and then just sort of, obviously project when the next one might occur based on the history of events?
Yeah, that is actually an interesting metric. I think the information that you would need to calculate that is, of course, all stored within the system. We keep the full history of, both all maintenance events as well as any, breakdown or condition events and triggers in the system. So analyzing that historical data that is stored within CMMS Plus over time should allow you to actually project that forward. That is actually a interesting metric.
Excellent. Well, we have 2 more questions. One is, how do we get our data into your system?
Sure. So there's, really a number of ways. The most common way I would say, for the initial startup of the system is, just sending it to us in an Excel spreadsheet. If you're running an existing CMMS system, just, bring it out of there into Excel. We do have some nice import Excel templates that you can use, which have, validation macros built in, or you can send it to us really in any Excel format. But as I was mentioning earlier, we do also tie into a number of APIs. So we do have the ability to query other system APIs to get things like, all of the asset records or all of the vendor records, and pull it in that way as well. So there's, a number of ways available to you to get that initial data loaded into CMMS Plus.
Great. And the last question is about also getting started. How would my team get trained on your system, and how long would it take to be up and running?
Well, I mean, it does depend on how many users, but in general, we have an implementation process that really is agile, really is, based on rapid deployment and go live. And part of that is predicated on this whole notion of our system being configurable, and that's part of the process too. So before people get trained, our implementation team takes them through a series of questions and business process reviews and all that, and from that, what roles are going to be using the system, and then what's important to those roles. So we have templates that they can use to create logins and environments that are very simple and role-based, so that when it does come time for training becomes much easier because folks are just getting trained on what matters to them. So yeah, we'd love to talk to you more about that. If anyone has questions on it, we'd love to share our go live process with folks.
Perfect. Well, it does look like we're out of time, and so I want to thank you, Ed and Doug, for being here today. And Ed, is there any summation statements you'd like to give our listeners?
Yeah, just thanks to everyone who attended, and love the questions. If there's more coming, we'd love to take a look at those and answer those with more granularity and more detail. But we really look forward to hearing from folks on the screen. There's our contact information, cells, whatever. So we just look forward to engaging more with anyone who is interested and needs more info.
Great. I also want to remind our listeners that if you missed any portion of this webinar or would like to listen to it again, the presentations and the Q&A will be available on demand. Within the next 24 hours, you will receive an email with a link to the recording. You'll also receive a post-webinar survey, so take a moment and respond to it so we can continue to improve our experience for you. On behalf of automation.com and Lumen, I thank you for your attention. This concludes our presentation. Have a good day.